Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? I was worried about my camera zoom because in my little preview it looked like that. But you can see my unicorn head. Maybe I need to leave it with this because I was making sure the little candles were on too. I kind of like the unicorn head being there. Well, I know it's a late show. I have a brutal schedule now, but I have been keeping up the content. And you can see my little portable radiator back here as well. But let's zoom it back in, even though I like having the unicorn there, but let's zoom it back in. And I am going to stick up the comments because there are some. I am so glad it's such a late show. So we're going to get right into it because I actually do want to go to bed. Just for point of reference, to give you all an idea of my days now. A lot of people may know I did start a new job a couple months ago, and it's in downtown Denver. Well, I don't live near downtown Denver. I have, between morning and night, don't freak out. You all know I'm a freak. I have over a 4-hour commute every day, but it's on a train. Right now it's on a bus because there's construction on the train. So I do LP work during those hours, so it's not really wasted hours. And in fact, I'm forced is the wrong word, but I can't sit around and like watch TV or just putz around with the dogs. I'm trapped in a train, so I am very productive, but it's exhausting. I leave the house at 5:30 each day and don't get home till after 7. And then I come and do content for you guys. So hopefully that you appreciate it. And is Denver Airport a secret military base? Who knows? Who knows? They certainly play into it there. The Demon Horse is a special touch because that's exactly what you want to see when you're flying into an airport. But I love Lucifer. No idea. Denver Airport is bizarre, but I do love it. What's funny about Denver Airport, well, there's a lot of things funny about Denver Airport, but it's not even in Denver. That's one funny thing about it. I think it's technically in Aurora. Denver Airport used to be Stapleton Airport, which was in the heart of Denver. And I wished I lived here during that time because it was a really interesting airport that the city grew up around. So the planes came in like right over I-25, like right over I-25. I wish I could have seen that. So, thank you, Samuel. The commute is brutal, but it's super productive. And Wayne doesn't get it, but I have a love affair with downtown Denver. The history there to me is just so palpable, and the buildings are so beautiful. I'm sure I'll get tired of it after a while. But right now I'm digging it because I like being downtown. So, but it is tiring. Whether or not I'm productive or not, a commute of that long is tiring. All right, enough of the chit chat, but I like hanging out with you guys. I'm going to ask, please subscribe. Why isn't that centered? If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. My YouTube shorts have been doing very well, so I've been getting some new watchers. I am so tired, but might not be subscribers. And Logan, I don't know. It's DIA is DIA. It used to be Stapleton. Stapleton was the airport that was in downtown Denver. Well, not downtown, but in the city itself. It wasn't downtown. I think it was a little south of that. And also, please follow me on Twitter. I thought I put a stroke around these. Why isn't, because it looks like it does. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. Kerning line height. I think something changed about my little things along the bottom there. I'll have to figure it out later because I just did an update to this program and those don't look right. It doesn't look like my old show, but we'll figure it out later. But last but not least, and Free Market Jesus, I'm not muted. I've been talking with everyone back and forth, and I can see my audio. Maybe you need to close and restart YouTube because other people can hear me, and I'm looking at my levels, and they are good. But last but not least, ooh, something really, really happened with this text down here. It serves me right for oh, style, text margin, border. No, I don't like that. Well, we'll put on none, but I'm just playing around with this now. More options. You could put a shadow on it. That makes it a little better. Okay, I'm going to stop playing around with it. So anyway, sorry about that. Please support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I know I'm going to have some new viewers here are going to be like, holy crap, you are just taking too long on the intro. So we're going to get started. Matt Walsh. But this isn't really about Matt Walsh. I just watch Matt in the Daily Wire a lot because I get a lot of content from them. And I thought this was a good object lesson. When you are listening to political commenters on YouTube or commentators, including myself, but mostly these really big ones that put out a lot of content, they don't always, though you may think they should or they do because you trust them, they don't always research very well the topics they are telling you about. They read headlines, they read blurbs, they know what they want their take to be, and what their audience's take will be just as a knee-jerk reaction, and that's what they serve up. And I'm not even claiming anything malicious about this. I think it is somewhat human nature, and I have certainly been guilty of this. And where I started to really notice this a lot was during the police brutality and alleged brutality cases, where you would listen to one certain type of channel, say with the Breonna Taylor, you would hear one angle, and then you'd listen to another type of channel, and you'd hear a completely different angle. And, they both can't be right. So I had taken to just really researching myself and coming up with my own conclusions, but most people were only getting one flavor of the story, and all of these things with George Floyd and the hands up guy that started the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Mike, getting old and tired. But what I'm saying is channels start with a narrative. Now, I'm looking for the libertarian angle. So again, I could be just as guilty of this. So recently, worlds of mine collided. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows I have quite a variety of interests. And it's not just libertarian politics, like deeply interested in cults and religions, just studying them. Also architecture, history, all kinds of things. We're more complex beings than just our political view. But one thing you may not know, though I've mentioned it on past shows, it doesn't come up here a lot. Because I'm really interested in the study of religion, some of you may not know, I'm a Christian author, been studying religion a long time. Before I got into politics, I was the owner of one of the largest theology debate forums, back when V-Bulletin was a thing. So very deeply interested in studying religion. Michael Brown, that's it. Thank you, Death. Don't think I'd want to be thanking Death very often, but thank you. And one of the areas of study is Scientology. I like learning about Scientologists. No, I'm not sympathetic towards it. I think it's a very dangerous cult. But because of that, I watch a lot of shows on Scientology. I watch a lot of shows on Mormonism. I watch a lot of shows on debates between Roman Catholicism and Protestantism. And no, I'm not comparing those to Scientology. I'm just saying I watch a lot of religious content. I watch a lot of atheist content, just interested in metaphysical beliefs. But particularly interested lately in Scientology. And there is a channel I watch regularly, which a lot of you who are interested in the same subject will know the channel. It's called Growing Up in Scientologists. Aaron is in the room. So I watch that channel a lot. And my worlds collided when there was a subject that Aaron on Growing Up in Scientology was dealing with for a while, and then all of a sudden I see Matt Walsh talking about it, and I'm like, holy crap, Matt Walsh is spinning this so badly, he is getting it so wrong, and most of his listeners, the Sweet Baby Gang, will be lapping it up uncritically because they are not given all the information. So this is about the former That 70s Show star, Danny Masterson, who just got sentenced, I believe, to life in prison for some sexual assaults that happened some time ago. And Matt Walsh commented very briefly on the Danny Masterson case in a lead up to be talking about Russell Brand. Now, we're not going to deal with the Russell situation. We're just going to deal with the Danny Masterson, and it's two entirely different situations. If you want the complete, factual breakdown of everything that Matt is talking about with the Danny Masterson case, I would highly suggest you just look up Growing Up in Scientology, Walsh, Masterson, and you will find Aaron's video. His name's Aaron, but you know, he does that from that movie. You can find where he does a half-hour full breakdown on it. I just want to deal with listening critically and showing you how badly Matt Walsh botched this from a more high-level view. I might not get every single detail and fact correct. I'm going to just be, again, giving you the bird's eye view, the critical view. Again, if you want to get the nitty-gritty details, please go check out Growing Up in Scientology. Okay, we're going to go to the video, and I'm going to start and stop and tell you big honking facts that Matt Walsh didn't tell you. Did he know? No, I don't think he knew. I think he heard something, he had a narrative, and he went to spin it. Don't always believe the talking heads. Research it for yourself, or at least listen to multiple points of view. There's a proverb that says, one man seems right until another speaks his case. And that should be how we examine these types of controversies. Okay, let's go to Matt.
Danny Masterson is an actor who most people haven't thought about for a long time, if at all. By all accounts, his career peaked all the way back in 2006 with the conclusion of the sitcom That 70s Show. But a few years ago, all of a sudden, Masterson's name was everywhere. That's because in March of 2017, the year that the hashtag #MeToo movement began in earnest, Masterson was accused of sexual assault by 3 women.
We're going to stop right here. He already has it wrong. Masterson was not accused in 2017. He was accused much, much earlier than that. He was accused around the time that the assaults happened. Now, there were 3 victims that were in the trial. One of them he wasn't convicted on. So, you know, legally speaking, even if on the examination of facts you think she is a victim, so let's just say 2 victims and 1 accuser. These all happened at the beginning of the 2000s, but he was accused back then. This had nothing to do with Me Too and everything to do with Scientology. Dealing with the Danny Masterson case and the 3 accusers and the word Scientology not coming up once is either inexcusably sloppy of Matt Walsh or thoroughly dishonest. Neither of those 2 options are particularly flattering. But how you can talk about the Danny Masterson case without mentioning the Scientology angle, which we're going to get into, is abysmally bad. And it should make you doubt any of these meta-narratives that you're being spun by Matt Walsh and others like him.
Response, without waiting for a trial, Netflix summarily fired Masterson from his role as a series regular on one of their shows. And 3 years later, in the
Okay, Matt has a point here. We have gotten to the point, and I'm trying to move my StreamYard to the other side here because I keep having to mute and unmute my microphone. We do have a bad problem with that, where the accusation is enough to make you lose your livelihood, lose your reputation. And I don't agree with that. Even though I don't think it, let's just back up. Is Masterson guilty? I don't know. The courts have said he is. I don't have a personal opinion on it. I didn't examine the facts enough. I'm more interested in the narrative that Matt Walsh is spinning. But the fact is, if you're an accused man today, the accusation is enough to ruin your life. And he is correct in this respect. That's not right. That's not right at all.
summer of 2020, Masterson was formally charged with 3 rapes in Los Angeles, a jurisdiction that, of course, believes all women. Prosecutors said that one...
This has nothing to do with the jurisdiction it was in. It really doesn't. And why did it take so long to charge him? Because the prosecutor was sitting on the charges for years for political purposes. This doesn't come up at all in Matt's narrative. He makes it sound like the charges were brought because of political purposes, when in fact they were suppressed for some years for political purposes.
Rape occurred in 2001, another in early 2003, and a third in late 2003. Now, right off the bat, the timeline raises some obvious questions. For one thing, how is it possible to prove a rape beyond a reasonable doubt 20 years after the fact?
We're going to get into this some more, but that's a decent question. And that is a concern when you start dealing with things that happened long ago. I know this isn't particularly a popular point of view, but there needs to be a super high burden when you're dealing with things that happened many, many years ago. We do see this a lot in these cases. That's not necessarily the case here, but I do think in isolation, what he said is a very fair point.
The absence of any physical evidence of violence or drugging. Now, you might think that the accused...
Okay, we're going to stop because there actually was some physical evidence. Maybe not the way he's defining it, but he hand waves away the physical evidence with saying it's not physical evidence. So, like for instance, in this particular case, there were witnesses that testified to the woozy behavior of some of the accusers. Well, is that physical evidence like finding a piece of DNA? No, but it is evidence of something physical. It's not just their word. There was corroborating testimony of a physical nature, if that makes any sense.
Accusers must have had airtight stories. But that's not true in this case. In fact, one of the accusers previously told authorities that Masterson had not raped her. She said,
okay, there's a lot of different angles here. Now we're going to get into the Scientology angle. All of these persons involved are in the Church of Scientology, and you don't make accusations against prominent fellow Scientologists. The Church of Scientology is known for burying these things. There's all kinds of alleged, I have to say alleged, controversies that have happened in the church with instances of ratting on each other. But these women, or at least one of them, was told, I think it was actually several of them, were told by the church to keep their mouths shut, that these incidents were reported to the church as per like their a policy, whether it's official or not, and it was swept under the rug. To say that they only brought these up decades later or 15 years later just isn't correct. And in fact, at least one of them did go to the police. Now, one of the complicating factors here is that the one he's saying told the police that she didn't think what happened was rape is because that's what the Church of Scientology told her. They were like, you are his girlfriend. A boyfriend can't rape a girlfriend. And when you are completely brainwashed by a cult, you have to take that into consideration. But that doesn't come up at all in Matt's commentary. The whole cult angle of a very high control group burying things and sweeping them under the rug and intimidating people through threats of disconnection or being declared a suppressive person where you can end up losing your livelihood, your friends, your family. That's a very high pressure tactic that goes to explain the years of silence after initial reporting. Now, does that mean he should have been convicted? Again, I don't have an opinion on that. I wasn't on the juror. But we're just asking if Matt is giving his audience all of the relevant facts. And he definitely is not, because he does not bring up any of this, and there's something really egregious about to come up.
that she only realized years later that she was raped. She originally thought it was consensual, and then years after the fact, changed her mind.
And he doesn't bring up because she was pressured by a high control cultic group.
This explains why late last year the jury deadlocked. There was a mistrial. According to the foreman on that jury, they were leaning towards acquittal on every count. And he said that the reason for that is that they found the stories from the accusers to be inconsistent, contradictory, and implausible.
Okay, let's stop here. Here's the really egregious thing, and where Matt should be thoroughly ashamed of himself. So, Danny Masterson was tried 2 times. He got retried, and you're hearing from Matt that the first trial, I think it ended in a mistrial or whatever. There was a statement from the jury foreman about how terribly unbelievable these women are. But what Matt doesn't mention is that the jury foreman was a plant from the Church of Scientology. He was working with the defense the whole time. That's why Danny got retried. But Matt doesn't mention any of this. Again, you can get more details on the Growing Up in Scientology channel. But even if you don't believe he was a Scientology plant, the fact is that's what a lot of people believe, and that is the reason for the second trial. You would think that would at least come up in Matt Walsh's narrative, but he doesn't. Don't you think that would be somewhat relevant if the entire backdrop of this case was a high control religious group and the foreman of the first jury turned out to be a member of that high control religious group and was working with the defense? Don't you think that's somewhat relevant to mention Matt? Even if you don't believe it, to at least say that's the allegation, because he's not going to bring that up at all. And I think it turned out to be a mistrial. In my comments, it says, does retrial violate double jeopardy? When it's a mistrial, it does not. And I think that's what happened. Again, all of the nitty gritty of this trial, I don't know. I do recommend you go check out that other channel for that. I am just mentioning the high level background allegations and potential facts that you would think would be relevant for Matt to bring up. But then it isn't this cut and dried case of society just going after innocent men because of Me Too, when this had nothing to do with Me Too and everything to do with alleged pressure on alleged victims in a high control religious group. That doesn't come up once in his commentary, and he ought to be ashamed of himself.
But then just a couple of weeks later, a couple of weeks ago, I should say, as you might have heard, Masterson was put on trial again. And this time around, the judge changed the rules. The judge allowed testimony that Masterson had drugged his victims, even though there was no physical evidence of that. In the first trial...
Okay, there was some testimony to that, but something Matt's not also bringing up is a complicating factor, which I found bizarre, but the law in the jurisdiction where this happened doesn't consider drugging somebody to be an act of violence or an act of force. And that is crazy. But again, that's some of the nitty gritty of the legal background that I'm not interested in. I'm not going to say I'm not interested in it. That's not what this video is about. This video is about asking yourself the question, when you hear somebody telling you what you want to hear and spinning a narrative that validates your preconceptions, question it, because Matt's leaving a whole lot out here.
The prosecution was only allowed to describe the condition of the accusers after they consumed alcoholic beverages that Masterson gave them, describing them as woozy and disoriented. They were not allowed to directly claim that the women were drugged because there was no evidence of that. There was no evidence that
Okay, describing how someone acted after alcohol, which is unusual to how they would normally act, is evidence. It's circumstantial evidence, but it's evidence. Circumstantial evidence is actually how most cases get decided. People watch too much Law and Order. Well, actually, Law and Order is fairly accurate, but too much, TV crime to think circumstantial evidence isn't evidence. It is. In fact, it's quite persuasive evidence. Most murder cases are convicted on circumstantial evidence.
wooziness was the result of anything more than the alcohol they were drinking. But in the second trial, that kind of caution was thrown to the wind. And
he's making it sound, he said the judge changed the rules and making it sound like they just were out to get this guy and that's why they had a second trial, without ever at all mentioning that there's at least strong allegations that the foreman on the first trial was a plant, and that's why he got retried.
Again, without any actual evidence, Masterson was accused of drugging his...
No actual evidence. Testimony is evidence. Several of the women went to the police. They reported it to the church. That is evidence. Reporting something is evidence. It's, again, people watching too much TV drama thinking that everything has to have, luminol spots or DNA or hair fibers. That's not the way it usually works.
Alleged victims, and that apparently did the trick. Masterson was convicted after the retrial, and he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Now, you don't have to like Danny Masterson or know who he is or believe he's innocent to understand the implications of what happened to him.
The implications that you left out of being part of a high-control religious group that pressures and brainwashes its members, that didn't come up once because you're trying to paint a narrative of a culture that's completely and utterly against men and that believes women at all costs. And the thing is, I'm sympathetic to that point of view. But that's not the narrative here in the Danny Masterson case. I actually do think that men, in a great many circumstances, get the shaft. I don't consider myself a feminist. I don't identify as a feminist. I don't think I'm oppressed. I don't think women are oppressed. In fact, I do think there's a very real thing of female privilege. I've enjoyed it many times. So I'm not the, bra burning, armpit hair wearing, frothing, barking moonbat feminist here. But he's not giving the whole story. Just because that does happen doesn't mean it happened here. And he did not give you the background facts. But this ultimately isn't about Danny Masterson or what he's saying here. It's about being critical of commentators that you trust and listen to, because it is so easy to read events through the prism of the narrative you wish to spin, particularly when you're someone who's doing a daily show. You don't have the time to research this. I first saw Matt's show, and because I already had a little bit of background information on this to be suspicious, I've spent, just to do this really broad overview today, a week and a half looking into what he said and trying to pull out the facts that he did not bring up. There's no way he was able to do that in a 24-hour news cycle. Now, I know he has staff, but they didn't do a good job with this one. And that is just really a large abdication of responsibility. And thank you so much for the super chat, Death. It's always weird to be thanking Death, but thank you, Death. Okay, we just have a few moments left on this clip.
This case is proof that even in 2023, years after the hashtag #MeToo hysteria has faded, physical evidence of wrongdoing is not required.
Physical evidence isn't always required. Oh, I'm getting a little cold. I think my nose was running. That's nasty. Honey badger don't care. Matt, physical evidence isn't always necessary. What's funny is that you're carrying a torch here for the case of Danny Masterson. Meanwhile, that video we did on you on how you had absolutely no sympathy for the thousands and thousands of Argentinians that were rounded up in dragnet operations with absolutely no due process and thrown into inhumane conditions. Consistency much, Matt?
Convict someone of rape and destroy their life. Neither is timely reporting or even a consistent story.
they did timely report it.
From the alleged victims. All you need is a story. Danny Masterson's case demonstrates that.
Okay, there might be a lot of cases that demonstrate that, but Danny Masterson's case did not. Matt had a narrative that he wished to spin to lead into his commentary on Russell Brand, and that's Brand, and that, excuse me, and I mangle names all the time, and he seized upon this opportunity. But if you take away one thing from here, don't just blindly trust the talking heads. And that includes things I say. You should always be critical. Too many people that are very avid consumers of specific channels on YouTube, and I'm one of them, aren't critical enough of the content creators they enjoy. I'm not telling you not to enjoy them. I'm just telling you, as my mother used to say, and I haven't heard anyone modern say this, you know, my mother's been passed away for a while, but she used to go, use your noodle. Just use your noodle. And that's what I'm saying when you're listening to people. Put on your critical thinking cap and use your noodle. And I just realized if in the context of a SA case, like that could be taken multiple ways. Don't use your noodle that way. I mean the noodle here. All right, everyone. I hope you have an awesome night. Again, super thanks all matter, and I would appreciate it if you enjoy the type of very varied content that I do, to become a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. It makes me so happy when I get those emails. And check out my YouTube shorts. They've been doing really well. All right, have an awesome night. Mi guapas de libertad.
Gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to